Okay, would you have been allowed to use any form of self-defense, like guns, on them if they
Oh
had
yeah.
attacked you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 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 We were carrying weapons, and we would have been more than able to respond to that. Um, there's only one time I actually had to take out my weapon in Florida, and it was actually pretty funny because the missions that we ended up getting broken down into were first to assist the Florida State Police, to free them up so they can drive. And I remember there was no electricity, all power's down, phone lines are down, everything's down. So you've got Route One that's going through there. You've got some major major intersections, and so our company was divided into a couple of different tasks. We worked every day. We worked 12 on, 12 off every day, and so for the first few weeks we were there, we were doing the patrols was part of the breakdown. So you'd be patrolling. There was helping with protection of folks doing food distribution and stuff like that, so that people didn't overrun them. So we'd be there assisting with the distribution of food, medicine, supplies. And there was also traffic control. There was major intersections, and you would have 4 MPs per intersection. 2 would be out there at a time, half hour on, half hour off, half hour on, half hour off, and you would be just stopping traffic each way, and letting all the... So you think about Route 1 or you think about major intersections, there were MPs at every single one of those. And we had a situation, everybody worked, everybody did stuff each day, and you rotated through, so you would have a couple days of doing traffic duty, a couple days of patrolling. There's actually Florida Light and Power was going through the area. They were rewiring and putting in poles all the way up and down that area, and so they got held up a couple times, and they had cable stolen and copper and stuff that they had. People would steal from them, so we were assigned to protect them. We'd have two MPs per shift. That was actually the best gig, because they had the best food. We were eating army crap, but they had real food. They had the eggs were actually yellow, and they had bacon, and they had a gut truck you could load up on Gatorade and smokes and dip and all that stuff. And those were the best gigs. Everybody tried to say that those were the worst gigs because they didn't want everybody else taking them, but they were the best gigs. But back to your question, there was one time with traffic. We actually stopped some cars to let the next direction go through, and there was a kid named Hawkins and myself that were out there. I was actually senior ranking over Hawkins, so I was technically in charge of it, and so we stopped the direction and then started letting the other cars through, and then a guy got out of his car, and he was very irate, and he started yelling at us, and I won't say the exact words he was saying, but it was along the lines of, "What the hell are you doing? I want to go through, blah, blah, blah," right? So, I, in my sweet Smitty comedy way, said, "No, we'll get to you, don't worry, relax, we'll get to you," Because what we were doing is we were taking 45 seconds each way, stopping, 45 seconds each way, stopping. I mean, it's not the most sexy stuff, but that's what we did. So this guy goes around the back of his car, and he opens up his trunk, right? So Hawkins and I see this, and then the 2 guys who are resting essentially in the Humvee saw it too, and so we're like, what is he doing? So we for the traffic we only had our pistols. We had 9mm, so we unhooked the the strap over it so we could get at our pistols if we needed, in case he came out with something. And he did. He came out with an axe, and so he has this big axe, and he starts walking towards me and Hawkins. And so Hawkins to my right, he comes up. All traffic stops, as you can imagine, and this idiot takes and he's got this axe, and so we yell at him, to stop and put the axe down and all that. The 2 guys that were in the Humvee come out, and they're yelling at him to stop, and he didn't stop, so he kept coming. And so I took out my pistol, and Hawkins took out his pistol. And so, we're like, stop, we're going to shoot you. And they train you, okay, you're going to shoot for the leg. No, I was shooting center mass. The boy was going down, and just kept yelling at this idiot to stop. And we cocked, and we were completely ready to shoot. And I told Hawkins, I said, you don't shoot, I'll shoot him. And so that way, I didn't want to have, Hawkins getting, investigated as well and all that stuff. And I just said, I'll shoot him. And then behind him, running towards him, I saw 2 Florida State Troopers. They were running, they were farther back in that line, and they were just patrolling up and down Route 1. And so they saw what was going on, so they came running. So I told Hawkins to put his gun down, because I didn't want him to accidentally shoot and then somehow hit, he wouldn't have, but I didn't want him hitting the troopers or anything as they were running. And so I just started yelling at the guy again. I'm like, put the axe down, put the axe down. And he wouldn't, but he did stop. So he was probably about 10 feet away from me, and that was it. Ooh. And so I told him if he takes one more step, I'm going to shoot him. And then one of the state troopers ended up diving on top of the guy, just tackled him from behind. The axe went flying, and between the 2 troopers, they ended up just handcuffing the guy and arresting him and doing all that stuff. So that was the closest that I came. But then I just obviously put the pistol back in my holster, and doop, that was enough for that. But during all the patrols and everything, we never encountered, people would know we were coming, so they'd run, so we never encountered anything.
All right, if we could take it back a couple steps and sort of share with everybody your personal background, a little bit of a bio.
Sure. So, grew up actually in Dedham, Massachusetts, and so when talking through my family background, I lived in Dedham, was raised by, my father was actually the principal of Dedham High School, so I grew up the son of a principal, which can be interesting, but that's a different interview. And my mom was a realtor in Dedham as well, so my mom and dad lived together, and I have one brother who is older than me, is 2 years older than me. Then did they both work? Yeah. So obviously being the principal is challenging, but rewarding in its own ways. And then my mom's selling real estate. We were brought up Roman Catholic, and so it's funny with your question of just have the same beliefs. Well, I can honestly say that my beliefs of Catholicism are the same today as they were when I was growing up. I think we'll leave it at that. And then my parents were both very liberal people. I don't want to necessarily say they're tree huggers per se, but they are very much liberal. But they are. And my mom was one of the first of those ladies walking in the 60s for women's rights and all that stuff. In fact, she likes to tell me that I was there because I was in her belly. That's next year's
interview, I guess.
Okay then. So yeah, so they're very, very liberal. I'm not of the same viewpoint of my parents on pretty much everything. I'm on the opposite spectrum of them. So, and even when when I was going to go into the Army, they weren't exactly thrilled about that. But what school did I go to? I went to, for high school, I went to Roxbury Latin, which is 7th through 12th. It's a private school, and so I went there. And then after Roxbury Latin, I went to Colby College, so I was up in Maine. And then I went to the military.